You're listening to Auld Lang Schmooze, the Edinburgh Jewish Cultural Centre podcast. I'm David Neville, and it's the beginning of September 2025. So now that the Edinburgh Festivals have ended, I'm now catching up with Adrian Harris, a trustee of the Edinburgh Jewish Cultural Centre, who, along with the Edinburgh Hebrew congregation, mount a festival open day, and Adrian and I curate it and co-present it. How was the open day for you, Adrian?
Well, it was a lot of hard work, as usual, David, as you well know, but very enjoyable as ever. I think we were able to reflect the diversity of work that was being brought to the Fringe and the festivals by a range of Jewish artists from across the world, and put that on in front of a full house at the Edinburgh Hebrew congregation.
Yeah, and I think we had a really nice mix this year. I mean, we always do, but we had a really nice balance between extracts from plays, music, and of course, stand-up as well. We started with the klezmer band. It might be worth explaining the klezmer band because it's a movable feast, isn't it, put together by Phil Alexander?
Yeah, Phil, as some people may know, is just a fantastic musician, and we're so lucky that Phil is part of EJCC and is here with us in Edinburgh. And he's put together a band which has its roots in Edinburgh University. I believe now that it does extend to members outside the university, but the focus of the band has been klezmer music, and we were lucky enough to have them this year to start the open day and to get things going in fine form.
And lovely it was too. You know, there's a lovely eclectic mix of instruments and people. And we had about 180 people in the audience, which was one of our biggest, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think probably the biggest audience that some of the performers played to as well over the 3 weeks of the Fringe. And as usual, there's a coach party from Glasgow that comes every year. And they're a key component of the success of the event. They bring a sort of energy to the audience, and to their response to the artist is always fantastic.
Yeah, and again, one of the fun things about the open day is that we have artists, not just from the UK, but sometimes from all over the world, and the audience members as well. So after the klezmer band, we had an extract from a play called I Was a German, which we both went to see, and that was an interesting show, wasn't it, Adrian?
Yeah, very, very interesting, and really well performed by Claire Frankel, a solo piece where she explores and investigates the story of her grandfather, who was a German Jew. And in the course of exploring his story, she begins to learn more about herself. And I think this was quite a common theme across a number of shows that I saw that were both part of the open day and that I saw elsewhere, of people exploring their family history, and through that exploration beginning to get an understanding of their Jewish identity. And in the case of I Was a German, Claire was motivated by her desire to have a European passport in a post-Brexit world. But as I say, in the course of exploring the administration and complexities of doing that, began to learn a lot about herself, her heritage, and the legacy of her grandfather.
Yes, and one of the things about Fringe particularly is that solo shows are very popular, and there's quite a lot that follow this path of being autobiographical, which is fascinating. And again, talking about how varied our program was at the open day, one of the first stand-ups that we had was Bennett Aaron, a Welsh Jewish comedian. He does describe himself as the only Welsh Jewish comedian in his village or in his town. He was doing a show called I Regret This Already, which was a fascinating show. And before the Fringe, he described it to me that it was about depression, it was about grief, it was all about all the things that you think couldn't possibly make a humorous stand-up show. And I saw Bennett's show when we had an extract at the open day, and Bennett very skillfully managed to talk about his own experiences, particularly in the past year of experiencing grief, anti-Semitism, and depression for the first time. And he has a wonderful way of talking about that, but at the same time, as a brilliant stand-up, always punctuating it with good comedy. Then, just before lunch, we had Accordion Ryan to change the mood again.
I think he kind of whipped the audience up into a frenzy with his Scottish medley on the accordion, really, and had everyone singing along if they knew the words, or certainly clapping and stomping their feet. So I think it was a good way to send people off for their bagel lunch.
And afterwards, we continued again with stand-ups and with extracts from shows. Philip Simon and Rachel Krieger joined us in the afternoon, and they had a particularly tough time this Fringe, haven't they, Adrian?
Yeah, they did. People may be aware that Rachel and Philip had their shows cancelled by their venue. In Philip's case, by 2 venues. And if I'm being quite blunt about this, they were cancelled because they were Jewish. They both were appearing at a venue with whom they have a long-standing relationship. Both of their shows, their Jewish identity is part of their persona as performers. The venues chose to cancel them ostensibly for security reasons in one case, and in the other case because they said that Philip's values did not align with the values of the venue. Speaking personally, I feel that these reasons were entirely spurious and that what we witnessed was, in both cases, an act of anti-Semitism.
Yes, and it was widely reported in the press and widely discussed in the press. On a more positive note, both of them were offered other spaces for at least part of their runs. But overall, I mean, there was a lot of Jewish-themed shows at the festival and Jewish performers or non-Jewish performers performing shows that had a Jewish theme, perhaps more than many years, actually. Would you say?
I think that's true. I mean, we unfortunately were not able to accommodate all of the shows and performers that perhaps we would want to, simply in terms of the length of time that we had available to us. There were more Jewish performers this year. If I remember rightly, I think last year we were concerned that there seemed to be a drop-off in the number of Jewish performers coming. This year that seemed to come back. If I could just say one more thing about Rachel and Philip, it was really encouraging to hear when they were with us, to hear how grateful they were to both the Edinburgh Jewish community and the wider community and fellow performers who had supported them through what was a really difficult time.
August has, of course, been a busy month also for the Edinburgh Synagogue, the Edinburgh Hebrew Congregation. And joining me on this edition of the podcast is Matthew Shapps, the chairman of EHC, Edinburgh Hebrew Congregation, and vice chair Hilary Rifkind.
Well, August has been tremendously busy. We had the kosher diner on Tuesdays and Thursdays for 3 weeks, which was fantastic. Lots of people came and dropped in. We had our open day jointly with the Cultural Centre, which was tremendous. Fantastic event, a lot of work, but it really paid off. And then we had our civic service, which was on the 16th of August. Now, this is an annual event, and the Lord Provost comes to the synagogue with his retinue, the high constables. There's a ceremonial aspect to it, but also we invite a lot of VIPs, and Edward Green does a lot of the work for this, and we get over 60 VIPs we got this year, which ranges from MPs, MSPs, very senior faith leaders, the Archbishop of Edinburgh, for example, the Chief Imam of Scotland, diplomats, consul generals. The head of the Fringe came this year, which was great, and the president of the Board of Deputies of British Jews, and many, many others. It was a fantastic occasion. The rabbi said a special prayer for Edinburgh and gave a sermon which went down very well, actually, about the need to accept other people's views, even if you, or listen to them, even if you didn't agree with them, and the need for some attention to education and anti-Semitism, which was very important. We had a fantastic Kiddush catered for by our new person, Merav Harel, who does a lot of our catering now, fantastic spread, and everyone enjoyed the Kiddush, and it was a really great event. We also, in fact, the next day had a meeting with Phil Rosenberg, who's the president of the Board of Deputies of British Jews, where he was able to explain the board's new position really on Gaza and Israel, recognizing the suffering in Gaza as well as the need to release hostages, and that was fascinating. So it's really been a bustling time for the community, and I think one thing it signifies is that I think we're very open now. We really want to collaborate with the Cultural Centre and many others. So that's, I think, the direction that we want to go in. We don't want to present ourselves as just a religious organisation, social and community outreaching. I think that's the message that we want to convey.
Hilary, the civic service has been going on a long time. What do you think is the best thing about having the civic service? What does it do for the relationship between the shul and the city?
To have this sort of relationship, which seems to strengthen every year, is just so important. And the councils that come love it. And I think it's so important for them to show how comfortable we feel with each other and the respect that is shown by the city to our shul and our community, and the relaxed nature that we now have with them. I think it's incredibly important. And now that it's been extended to other faiths and MSPs, etc., it's so heartwarming, both for us who are putting it on and for the guests.
Yes, and that was the idea of the open day. It was to bring people into the shul, the synagogue, so that, you know, for Jewish people visiting Edinburgh, but for many other people visiting Edinburgh or from Edinburgh, to come and understand what the Jewish community was like and to experience Jewish culture.
Can I just add one thing about the civic service? That
Sure.
Phil Rosenberg, the president of the Board of Deputies, is going to try and get communities in England to do the same thing. There are one or two that have, you know, something, maybe the mayor coming, but nothing on the scale of ours. And he's going south to try to get other communities to emulate what we do.
Hilary, it is the hub of Jewish life in the city in many ways, because you run lots of other activities, don't you? I mean, I think you've just finished doing the lunch club today. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I wasn't cooking today.
So the lunch club, that's a weekly activity.
Yes, it is. The lunch club has changed completely. When it was originally started, I've got the records somewhere, but it was really to provide lunch for people who were either socially needy. It was always for the older people, and it was people, you know, widows and widowers. And we used to have an amenities bus go and collect people, and it was welfare, purely and simple. They didn't seem to socialize much. They had the meal. Some of them had carry-outs. We used to deliver carry-outs to people that were housebound, and then they would go off. The French club tried to make it more social by having carpet bowls or something, but that didn't work. It really was a welfare organization. And, all of these old people are no longer with us. There are only a couple, what I, in my 80s, called elderly people. We've got a couple of people in their 90s. But really, everybody, the lunch club now is social. It happens every week, and it's a very nice social occasion. We do, if there was somebody who was ill and somebody who was needy, of course, we would take carry-outs to them. But it's now very pleasant, and we've got a wide range of cooks and very nice food, and it's very enjoyable.
Great, thank you. And there's a lot of activities that take place in the Edinburgh Synagogue that you partner with Sukkot Shalom, the Cultural Centre, the Edinburgh Jewish Literary Society, for example, the Burn Supper.
Yeah.
That's something that it brings a lot of people together. And I believe there's going to be another one.
Yes. So I believe in January, yeah.
Well, the Burn Supper, again, is a collaboration and with different organizations, and we spread the net quite widely as to who we invite. And of course, it's not a religious occasion. It's really a social and community celebration and cultural as well. So it's a great event.
The Edinburgh Jewish community now is relatively small compared with some of the bigger communities, perhaps down south or even in Glasgow. But you get a lot of visitors, don't you, or people coming to stay and work in Edinburgh for a year or perhaps longer. Can you just tell us a bit about that? Maybe a bit about how many visitors you would get over the summer as well?
We've not stopped over the summer. We've had far fewer Israelis this summer and last summer just because, of the difficulties of traveling. But it is constant. It really starts from about April till, probably till the Yom Tov, and we get trickles. The congregation, having decreased in size, actually has quite a different feel. Everybody who's involved talks about our community family. Because it is so small, it is like one big family. And it doesn't, all of us in our 80s are as friendly with the young ones in their 40s and 30s who've got babies. And I would call one of our regular activities, even though it's religious, is our weekly Kiddush, the sit-down Kiddush, because we're small. This all came about after COVID, because once we were allowed to eat again on the premises, we decided it was safe to sit at round tables. We had sort of 4 people round, then, got a bit closer, and everybody enjoyed the sit-down Kiddush. And visitors, without fail, comment whenever we have visitors and they come to the Kiddush, and the number of people who've said it's like walking into one big family.
Just some things about the character of the community and how it's changed. As we've been saying, it is relatively small and more numbers during the summer. But actually, we now have more numbers throughout the year who come to our events than maybe used to be the case a few years ago, because I think the profile's changed. We have many more students and also many more young people, young couples. We have quite a lot of babies now. We have a flourishing children's service. And we have over 3 times as many Jewish students in Edinburgh as in Glasgow. And our fantastic chaplains, the Shabbos, really attract a lot of students. So the atmosphere is pretty different now than maybe what it used to be a few years ago. The other thing is, even though we're very small, the percentage of people who turn out to our events is an incredibly high percentage of our total members. Very often might be half or more of the total membership who actually come to things, which is fantastic. And I think even the chief rabbi said that proportionately we're probably one of the most active communities in the entire UK, which is really a fantastic tribute.
The Open Day is a great opportunity for artists to meet and get to know each other and chat. And this year we had recent drama graduates who were doing their first show at the Fringe, a show called Eggs and Basket. We had a writer from New York who brought over a show called Will You Be Praying the Entire Flight?
You mentioned there, Will You Be Praying the Entire Flight, which was a show that I was fortunate enough to be able to see the whole show. And I really enjoyed the extract that we saw at the Open Day. The whole show is fantastic. It tells the story of two women, one ultra-Orthodox, the other one secular Jewish, sat next to each other on a transatlantic flight. And they're kind of trapped in their seats for the duration of this flight. And it's a really witty and touching script. And I think the key to it is that Gilly Malinsky, the writer, has equal respect for these two very different women, and how through humour and pathos they come to find common ground over the duration of this flight. I hasten to add the show doesn't last 5-6 hours, but just how in the time that we're together, they find common ground, they listen to each other, and they begin to understand each other. It's a fantastic show. So if it pops up anywhere near you, I would really recommend that, as indeed would be the case of any of the other shows that we've talked about thus far.
During the Edinburgh Festival, the synagogue ran a pop-up diner. Taking on the challenge to run this initiative was Jonathan Adler, and Jonathan is with me now. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, David. How are you?
I'm good. Jonathan, let's talk about the diner. There has been a diner in past years, and then there was a bit of a gap where the diner didn't happen. But for you, this is the first time that you have run the diner or a diner. Tell me about that. Why did you take up this challenge?
Well, you're quite right, David. I have never run a diner before. So as you said, the kind of pop-up diner has run for a number of years during the Edinburgh Festival at the show. It was conceived originally by John and Leslie Danzig, and it ran for a number of years. It didn't run last year in 2024, and I'd enjoyed it, and I thought it was a shame that it wasn't there. So I inquired whether it was going to run again this year in 2025. The answer was no. There were no plans to run it. And so I thought, well, if I wanted to happen, which I did, I would offer to run it myself. So I put together a proposal about what I would do, and it was accepted, and that's what happened.
Yeah, so what do you need to run a pop-up diner? I mean, obviously there's a kosher one, we can get into that in a minute, but what do you need? What's the first thing? Well, I suppose you need people, don't you?
Yes, I mean, we need people to help. And I suppose the most important thing is, which of course we did have, is we need a venue. And of course, as you know, during the Edinburgh Festival, every venue in Edinburgh is being used for something. So we are very lucky because the show in Salisbury Road has a very nice community hall. It has a kitchen. It wasn't being used. So I guess the number one problem was already solved. We had a venue and we had the facilities we needed. Then, of course, I needed volunteers to run it. And luckily, the Hebrew congregation, the EJCC, has a number of members who are keen to, help with these sorts of activities. And also, of course, being a kosher diner, we needed a supplier who was able to provide, the kind of products that we needed. And luckily, we have a very good relationship with Mark's Deli, And of course, I have a good relationship with Mark Cohen personally, which is very helpful. And so all the key ingredients were in place.
Yes, and that's Mark's Deli in Glasgow, isn't it?
That's right. It is his deli, which I believe is really the only kosher deli in Scotland still. And that's, on the south side of Glasgow.
That's right. And I know from talking to Mark that he often supplies people far and wide throughout Scotland. Yeah, so you get your team together, you work out your menu and everything. Are you a cook? Do you cook at home? Or
I do cook at home, but no, I would not describe myself as a cook. I've never run a diner before, but I do have considerable kind of project management experience, not specifically as running a diner, but a number of other events and a number of other sort of projects that I've been involved in for my work and in personal life. So I saw it as a kind of a project which I would be able to manage rather than specifically a kind of a culinary, a cooking kind of task, which I felt sure that I would be able to get the kind of help I would need to do.
Yes, and I mean, I think from watching many of the cookery shows on television, especially when they're set in a restaurant or wherever, you can see that the organisation of the kitchen and serving the customers is absolutely crucial.
Absolutely, yes.
Did you have worries about that, how that would go?
Of course, I had worries about it, but like you said, I mean, the key to all kind of project management is planning and organization. And if you can think about these things in advance and get things in place, then, that's 90% of the battle. And of course, I took a number of steps to help things. So I, for example, reduced the menu options from previous diners, specifically for the purposes of making things in the kitchen much easier. Of course, the fewer things you offer to your guests, the easier it is to prepare them and serve them in good time.
And so what was the menu? What sort of things were on offer?
The diner was always going to be a meaty diner. I think that was the tradition. And I think that was a way also because it's kosher meat products that are more lacking in Edinburgh with no kosher restaurants. So our two kind of Jewish diner food staples which had to be there were chicken soup and salt beef sandwiches. So there was no question in my mind. And as it in fact turned out, those were indeed our best-selling products.
And for vegetarians like me?
And then for vegetarians, of course, not everyone wants to eat meat. So a very popular starter was the latkes, another Jewish classic, and I decided to serve that with applesauce, which is the way that my family had always served these. Not everyone wants latkes with applesauce, but we did that. And then on the main courses, we had lots of salads, which was another idea of mine that went with all main courses, and we offered falafel and hummus and pita. That was our non-meat option. We had to have some dessert as well. We were very lucky that Hilary, Rifkind in our show is renowned for her famous fruit strudel. It's an apple strudel, but it also has lots of other fruits in it. And she was generous enough to make quantities of that, which we served, of course.
So with any venture like this, or even theatre ventures that I've been involved in, the question and the worry in your head, it must be, will people come through the door and will you get punters, as they say?
Yeah, no, that is a concern. And of course, I sought lots of advice. And that is a big issue for something like a diner and for all of the kind of hospitality industry, as opposed to, say, catering for a large event. In that circumstance, you generally know who's coming to the event, you know when the event starts, you know when the event stops, and you can plan. The biggest unknown for a diner is simply not knowing, right up until the diner itself, how many people will come, and of course, when they will come. So you just have to, take educated guesses based on, previous experience and a bit of planning for having more food in case more people turn up. Yeah, we'll just have to see how it goes.
How did it go?
Oh, I think it went extremely well.
You had enough customers?
We certainly had enough customers. Yes, absolutely. And in fact, as I was worried would happen, which of course did happen, is that the many of the customers choose all to come at the same time. It's perhaps not surprising if you offer a lunchtime diner that people want to come at lunchtime. So there were a few times when we were extremely busy. and then other times when we were much quieter. But I think that's the nature of an event.
And do you use your charm to speak to the diners and say, honestly, your meal will be with you shortly or something?
Well, we did do that a little bit, although I'd like to say that I think our systems were pretty good and pretty efficient in the end. That I don't believe we had anybody waiting too long. So
that's good. Any surprises in terms of where visitors came from?
We had locals, both locals in the community, locals from Edinburgh who knew about it, and then of course visitors, many with connections to the congregation in Edinburgh, but who didn't live in Edinburgh, so they were visiting Edinburgh to see friends and family in the festival. And then some who knew nothing about it, people from Israel, people from America, and people who just looked up about what the synagogue might be doing in Edinburgh, or even if there was a synagogue. And then they just came along. Of course, we'd also had quite a number of people who said they'd known about it because they had been in previous years. And so knowing that they were coming back to Edinburgh, they had specifically looked to see if it might be happening again.
So the big question, would you do it again?
Yes, I think I probably would. I haven't been asked to do it again, David, but I think I probably would. And I think actually, because a lot of these things, you learn so much in actually doing it. I think if it was to happen again, and if I was to be involved again, I think it would be quite a lot easier the second time, just because of what the experience we've had and what we've learned about what worked and what didn't work so well.
Thank you very much, Jonathan, for chatting with me today.
You're very welcome, David.
Music and musicals were well represented at the Fringe and at our open day this year. We were joined again by Jeremy Sassoon's Mojo and I Wish My Life Were Like a Musical, Alexander Barmanji's lovely musical show as well. What can you say about Jeremy and Alexander's shows? Very different shows, great musically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jeremy Sassoon's Mojo, Music of Jewish Origin, where he works his way through a catalogue of fantastic songs and standards written and or performed by Jewish artists. And it just reflects the astonishing contribution that Jewish composers, musicians, singers have, the contribution they've made to what you might describe as popular culture, popular music culture. It's absolutely phenomenal. And I Wish My Life Were Like a Musical. I think it's just a fantastic show that Alexander's put together, and the quality of singing. I always think it takes it's a huge risk to play with song. They bring it off magnificently. Yeah.
Yes, it was a new cast this year for Alexander's.
That's right. Yeah.
And Emma Wolfson came along to the open day to sing one of the numbers. And I Wish My Life Was Like a Musical. It sort of rips away the glitz of front stage, and in a wonderful way, it shares the thoughts and aspirations of the artists, but does it in song as if we were watching a musical. Fantastic things like the understudy who dreams of the star becoming sadly unwell so as they can have their moment on the stage. Lovely things like that.
Yeah. The other thing about artists, David, which is interesting, and I think reflects on how more and more people are getting to know about the open day, is that we get artists getting in touch who say to us, "Oh no, I don't want to come along and perform, but I'm going to be in Edinburgh, and I just want to spend some time with other Jewish people while I'm there." And that I think that's fantastic. That people are looking to make that sort of contact with other Jewish artists who are in Edinburgh for the festival and with the local community. So I think that's another really important function that the open day fulfills.
And we were lucky again this year to have Jess Robinson, the impressionist and singer, who was doing a show called Your Song, where she was paying tribute to Elton John and singing lots of Elton John songs, but in the character of people like Barbara Streisand, Amy Winehouse, and all sorts of other people that she's fantastic at impersonating. And as we do many years, we rounded off with Daniel Kaner, a singer-songwriter, and he was doing a show called Topical, where he had a lot of new material, a lot of songs that were very topical. And Daniel came to the Fringe for the first time in 2005. And he didn't know about the open day, then found out about it, and he came along. He'd never been to the Fringe before. He was having a tricky time getting audiences. I came to the festival open day and found a hall full of people who really appreciated his performance. So it was his 20th year at the Fringe and the 20th anniversary of the open day. So it was a nice way to round off the day. And of course, it's not just the Fringe where we get performers from, it's also the official festival. And Adrian, you went to the official festival and you saw Phil Alexander doing a new venture.
Yeah, yes. Phil is part of a trio called Triptych, and he plays with Mario Caribe and Greg Lawson, and they were performing as part of the international festival at the Hub, and it was a just delightful evening. It was absolutely wonderful. The three of them have played together a lot. They were part of a really well-known Edinburgh band called Moishe's Bagel, which no longer exists. But the three of them continue to play together. And what's so wonderful, apart from just the sheer quality of their musicianship, is that they each contribute to the sort of repertoire and program of the group. So Phil brings that kind of Central East and Eastern European twist to it. Mario brings that South American element to it, and Greg brings something British and European to it as well. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful mix. And I would have to say it was one of my highlights of the festival. Really great.
And Adrian, there's just time to talk about one more show that was in the Fringe and indeed won a Fringe First Award. Can you tell us about that?
It's called Nusha, is a one-woman show from Australia where, again, it is about a person's sort of research and investigation into, in this case, the life of her grandmother, who was a Holocaust survivor. And again, in discovering more and more about her grandmother, she learns more and more about herself and her Jewish identity. The actor basically says that before she began to explore the history of her grandmother, although she herself was aware of her Jewish heritage, she only ever used it to get out of RE lessons at school. That was as Jewish as it got for her. But in learning about her grandmother, who died when she was very, very young, and who she just saw as a fairly angry, cantankerous, difficult old woman, as she learned more about her from her mother, then the whole issue of her Jewish identity began to open up for her. And it's a fantastic piece of work.
You've been listening to Old Lang Schmooze, the Edinburgh Jewish Culture Centre podcast. Music in the podcast was by Phil Alexander and Triptych.